Okay, what up ladies and gents, it's your favorite Asian robot right here, hopefully your favorite Darktide partner, and today, the Wok, the People's Champion, is going to show you how to build a Brain Burst Psyker for your Warp Charge Penances and all that. What I'm going to tell you up front though is that Brain Burst is currently not a very strong talent. Why? Because, well, let me show it to you. Brain Burst takes 3 shots unless you trigger the kinetic flare, okay? It takes 3 shots to kill a crusher. This is extremely slow. You could do that with a Voidstrike staff. It takes... This is with 3 warp charges, by the way, which is contributing an extra 12% damage. It still takes 3 shots to kill a Reaper, okay, which you can do with your Voidstrike staff. And it takes about 2 shots to kill a Bulwark, which you can do with your Voidstrike staff. Okay, at max warp charges, you can close to 2-shot a Mauler if you've got almost maximum peril. Okay, so yeah, it's not in a good state compared to everything else because I may as well use other options. The Voidstrike staff comparison would show you that if I were to just say equip a Voidstrike staff right now, okay. And if I were to fully charge it, let's say, hit the weak spot, 2 shots for the Mauler, roughly 3 shots for the Reaper. It wasn't a full charge on the first shot, but 2 on the Crusher. Yeah, if you go for the head, it's pretty easy to absolutely annihilate your targets. Okay, so you can see that that is faster than the Brain Burst anyway, so... Yeah, if you're going to use a Brain Burst build, you may as well run the Purgatus staff, okay? That is the best option that I found out of all the other staffs. You can use the other staffs, but at least the Purgatus offers you very, very good horde clear. So that way you've got the Brain Burst for long range and the Purgatus staff for short range. But in general, this build is not recommended because not only is it weaker than all the other builds out there, you don't really have much opportunity to Brain Burst in actual combat. I tested it all night in Auric runs, and it was a very high failure rate because I wasn't contributing as much as a normal Psyker would. So the failure rate was very, very high indeed. That being said, I'm aware that this build is needed for your penances, so I've still constructed it for you guys, and I'll actually explain how to build it up right now. Okay? I'm going to make this explanation a lot quicker than my normal explanations, and the combat demonstration will actually be shoved into this video as well. Not because I don't want to give you guys a full overview, but just because this build is so unrecommended that I actually am doing a second take of this video right now because I was yawning the whole way through the first video take. It's that bad, yeah. Okay, let's talk about the melee weapon first. For my melee weapon, I chose the Illici, okay? You can use the Deimos, you can use a chainsword, you can use the dueling sword if you so choose. It's up to you what melee weapon you want. The only thing that would be important, in my opinion, is that your melee weapon should have damage to maniacs because it's mainly to counter mutants. So don't skip on that perk right here. And you will probably want to have extra damage, extra melee critical hit chance. It's usually very useful. So you might want to go with that. For my blessings on the Illici, I generally go with Deflector. And I didn't change the other one because, well, I don't have Bloodthirsty. I didn't want to sacrifice it yet without getting it. And this was a pretty good sword and I didn't want to roll again. So stat-wise, damage, finesse, first target are your priorities. Mobility is after that, but you still want a mobility roll of at least 70. And then warp resistance is your dumb stat because you really don't need this at all. You can, you will never pop as long as you don't charge your sword when you're at 100 peril. So I would just... go with whatever warp resistance they give you. In this case, I rolled a crazy roll of only 37, but you know what? The other stats are so good that I kept this sword. And I'm still using this sword to this very day with no trouble. Okay? So I really like this sword, and that's why I'm using it. Alright, that is it for the melee weapon. Now let's talk about your ranged weapon. This is, like I said, this is going to be a very quick video because I'm just going right into it. There are alternatives you can explore with the Surge, Voidstrike, Trauma, but in general, my particular choice for this build is the Purgatus. We use the Purgatus because the criticals on it and the Soul Blaze helps you deal with hordes very easily. The build is mostly geared towards Soul Blaze anyway, if you look at the talent tree, so Purgatus makes sense. The perks that are important for this are Flak Armored, because Purgatus will do nothing. Your Soul Blaze will do nothing to Carapace Armored enemies, so don't focus on that. Focus on killing the Flak Armored enemies faster. Range critical strike chance is a must, because every time you critically strike with the Purgatus Staff, and every tick of damage has a chance to critically strike, you apply double the Soul Blaze stacks, which is really awesome. In terms of stats, you want damage, burn, and cloud radius to be maximized. Warp resistance and quell speed are relatively dumb stats, but quell speed is more of a dumb stat than warp resistance. You kind of want warp resistance of at least 70 if you can manage it, but with these being so high, warp resistance of 70 is kind of a pipe dream, so that's why I just accepted 63. It made sense to me, all right? Blessings, Warp Nexus, Warp Flurry. Warp Flurry helps you charge faster because there's no charge rate modifier on this, and Warp Nexus will help you have more critical chance based on Imperil, which is really excellent for you as well, all right? This way you can crit more, apply Soul Blaze faster, and absolutely decimate your enemies. In terms of your Curios, I'm using the standard 3 stamina, 17 toughness, 21 max health. Perks, damage resistance gunners, maxed. Toughness regeneration speed, maxed. Same for all Curios. The third perk doesn't really matter, but I try to go for combat ability regeneration. Alright? And try to roll at 4% if you can. But I know how hard it can be to get that, so don't sweat it if you don't have it. Okay? Grand. Now for talents, let's go through the talent build of this really quickly. I'm going to remove my camera now so that you guys can follow along. Basically, Quietude and Warp Expenditure are your main sources of regenerating toughness. You can use Battle Meditation as well, because I really like it for helping me to branch into these 2 toughness nodes, which are absolutely necessary for the Psyker. Perfect timing. You critically hit very easily with this, so you should always have 15% extra warp damage, which will boost your brain bursts, alright, allowing you to make better use of Kinetic Resonance and Kinetic Flare. Kinetic Flare will allow you to trigger a random brain burst on a target, and all attacks have a 10% chance to trigger this random brain burst, which would be good if it didn't have a 15-second cooldown. Yeah. Brain Burst would actually be one of the most viable builds, if not for the fact that there's a 15-second cooldown on Kinetic Flare, which means that instead of just having a 10% chance to absolutely own a target, you know, you're kind of stuck owning a random target once every 15 seconds. And battles are so fast-paced that 15 seconds is a very long time. So I don't really recommend Kinetic Flare. It's just in this build because you've got no other choice. Kinetic Resonance will allow you to use your combat ability to make Brain Rupture charge 75% faster for 10 seconds. Let me explain why this is a bit of a newbie trap before we move on to the rest of the tree, okay? Even if I were to use this, look, this is how long it'll last. I've killed 1 Crusher, 1 Bulwark, and that's it. That's how long it lasts. I killed off 2 targets within that 10-second period. Okay? I'm sure you've seen staves and other things that can do even more than that. So I had to use my combat ability just to get this, and I killed 2 targets. This is pretty bad overall. It's not a good thing, which is why Brain Rupture is currently not popular and is like bottom of the table. Nobody really uses it, you know, unless they for some weird reason don't want to use the other 2. Okay? In terms of moving on past the skill tree, one thing which people have often said is that if they don't want perfect timing, fine, they go for Perilous Combustion for even more Soul Blaze stacks. Wildfire is generally chosen over Psykinetics Aura because it perfectly fits the Soul Blaze, the Purgatus Staff, and being able to spread your stacks of Soul Blaze to nearby enemies whenever each enemy dies is very good for horde clear. This is how you can kill off hordes and hordes and hordes. It's so good, all right? Toughness damage reduction is excellent, and of course you will want your kinetic presence. Ideally, some people have gone for, instead of Wildfire toughness, they go Psykinetics Aura, Inspiring Presence, and then Prescience, because the criticals will affect your Purgatus Staff. But because we're coming down to the left side of the tree for your warp charges, and because you're going for Venting Shriek as well, you are better off going for one with the warp, giving yourself additional toughness damage reduction, which will become very important for preserving yourself. Peril resistance is good. Venting Shriek here with more Soul Blaze as well, so you can light enemies on fire when you scream. Peril Resistance, Puppet Master, Toughness Damage Reduction, Solidity, Toughness Boost, Warp Siphon, Inner Tranquility, Empyrean Empowerment, and Psychic Vampire are going to be your keystone choices. Why? As soon as you're done getting Wildfire and all that, you just want to go down the left-hand side of the tree because Warp Siphon gives you a Warp Charge every time you kill an elite or specialist enemy. It gives you a Warp Charge for 25 seconds, it stacks up to 4 times, and they decay one at a time. But if you use your combat ability, all Warp Charges will be spent to reduce the cooldown of that combat ability. Hence why if you really want to build this build to maintain your Warp Charges, you have to avoid using your combat ability, maintain your Warp Charges, and keep brain bursting targets, which again is pretty hard to do in, say, high intensity shock troopers, which happens frequently in Auric damnation runs. So realistically speaking, this build doesn't suit the highest levels of gameplay. You will manage up to damnation quite easily, but going beyond that can be pretty difficult unless you have somebody to back you up and supplement what your entire build is lacking. That being said, you can still get up to 4 times 4, 16% base damage increased from your 4 warp charges, which is really, really good. And you will gain warp charges whenever you or an ally in coherency. There's a 4% chance you gain a warp charge whenever any of y'all kill an enemy. All right? So warp charges are pretty easy to get and maintain, and brain bursting and elite or special will give you another warp charge. In the past, brain bursting anything would give given you a warp charge, which is why the old penances are tied to that, but they haven't updated the penances for the new game, which is kind of weird, but whatever. This is why a lot of people feel like they're forced to use Brain Rupture and get Warp Siphon for the warp charges, all that. I recommend getting Warp Rider as always because it's a great damage increaser based on your peril. The health boost is useful and critical hit chance is very useful. If there's one thing I would have liked to get in this build, assuming I didn't need a point somewhere or I just want to take a point off, I would have gotten kinetic deflection because it can really save you in some terrible situations. This is what I actually use on my trauma staff, and I have not gone back. It is that useful, it is that good. Okay, so this is it pretty much for the build. In terms of playstyle, I will actually attach the combat demonstration to this video because, like I said, I could not be bothered very much with this build. It is so bad that it is the only Psyker build. Like, I love the Psyker. You guys know how much I love the Psyker, but it is the only Psyker build that I've actually felt turned away from playing because it just doesn't work for the highest levels of play, and you feel like you're a fish out of water. You feel like you're not strong enough. Now, how the game can improve the brain burst, I'm going to tell it to you straight up. The game should improve the brain burst by making it either instant cast at its current level with a set number of charges, like a sail, all right, maybe less charges because it's single target anyway, maybe just 5 charges. They slowly regenerate, no means of getting an extra charge faster, all right? They should slowly regenerate 5 charges, kind of like a sail insta cast, or a brain burst can require a charge, but it should be an instant kill. Or even it should literally cause them to fragment out. So insta kill, and then they explode, and maybe that could be one of the talents in place of the use your combat ability and brain burst faster. No, how about when you do a full charge of the brain burst and you brain burst them, they explode like a fragmentation grenade, dealing some damage to targets around them. Like, that would make it actually useful. Okay, just some food for thought, especially because it takes so long to charge. Okay, now for those of you that want to see the combat demonstration, just watch on. Okay, the combat demonstration will be coming next. I'm going to do my thank yous here and now though, because that way you can watch the combat demonstration with no interruption. Here is a thank you for all the top people that make this build as amazing as they possibly can. All right, starting right at the tip top. No, I'm just kidding. These are the people from our live stream first. These are our top tippers and top super chatters. Our top tipper for October is Rivarcher124. Okay, top tipper list, Vazgen. And our top super chatter is Jason Kun. Our top super chatter list, Dookie, Strix, John Taylor, Rivarcher124. Thank you guys so much. All right, in terms of our members who also make all of our content amazing month after month, you know, thank you. By the way, Jellos, I see you there as a weird bot. Hi. Thank you so much for joining. I saw your join notification today. In terms of our channel members, now the cool and weird bots don't usually get a personalized shout out. Jellos was special because I happen to see her name there. Actually, I shouldn't assume gender. Her or his name, you know, whichever they prefer. I try not to assume gender these days anymore. Thank you guys so much. Starting at the top members, you know, and of course, thank you to our cool mirror bots. Starting at the top, we have Big Chungus at the only fan level. Thank you so much. We have Death Donnie 982 with Plus Ultra. Thank you so much. We have Yuri, Jason Kun, Jerry Fast, Rogue Assassin, and Zach MG at Prestige. Thank you guys so much. You guys are amazing. Thank you to all of our honored robots as well. The following individuals: Nightshade, Corey Ryu, Bob John, Cube, Devin Lashin, Mookie Mocha, Rena, Chase Taylor, Nathan Strong, Lady Neo, Joey Danze, Sayed Assad, Cody CMF, Kamiya SMH, Conrad C, and Benjamin Savage. Thank you guys so much for all that you've done for me, and I hope you guys will keep enjoying my content. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. Set your notifications to all if you don't want to miss a show. And ladies and gents, let me bring to you the combat demonstration of this with some editing to make it nicer to watch. Okay? Have fun.
The settlement, home to the righteous or sinners, more likely.
Just look, by the time I charge this up, the guy's already dead, so what's the point? I may as well run through this area with my perk staff, right? See, this is why Brain Burst, like, unless it's super ultra long range, it's pointless. And when it's an armored target, everybody's so scared to engage the crushers, you see. When if they distract the crushers and let me Brain Burst safely, that's okay. But everybody's afraid of the one shot that crushers can do. But realistically, if you're going to play in melee, you have chosen the role of I am going to make it so that my team can survive, you see?
I look behind and in front like this.
Yeah, I know.
What the hell?
I say the safest way is we just keep going forward. Forget trying to do it legit. This is the most scuffed. Like, this is the incorrect way to play this, but I'm seeing this as the only way to even borderline work.
Psyker ran towards teammate but never do anything.
What are you waiting for? Activate the Ascender D16.
I would recommend the plasma gun, but I don't know how good it is. So, last gun, auto gun, it all depends on your style. Just be aware that, like, you'll have some strengths and some weaknesses. If, for example, if you're gonna bring a last gun, that's fine. Bring along crack grenades for monstrosities and big bosses, right? You need to have a way of dealing with heavy armor targets. You cannot bring a loadout that is horde focused. Never bring a loadout that has a clear weakness, especially when playing with randos. That's the biggest advice that I can give you. Always have a loadout that can deal with everything. It sounds really tough, but it's a necessity, unfortunately. You don't have a choice in the matter. The game is very different now. It's way better to stay in one group together. Otherwise, you risk a lot. I cannot even stop to brain burst that guy at a distance. Like, normally, I should be able to. This is, in fact, my role. You see the gunners at a distance, I should be able to effectively brain burst them so that the team can move on, but yeah. The only time I'm even effectively using my brain burst. Here come the bulwarks. And now, even with warp charges, brain bursting at a distance takes so much. The problem is, even with empowered psionics, almost fell off there. You can't get an empowered charge without actually killing an elite. So you still end up having to kill the elite before you get your faster brain burst. which is problematic. That's why I don't use it. Technically speaking, it should be used with warp charges. But man, the skill is just, you know, not good. This is true. This is true. Learning how to properly block and push is so important.
It does get dead warm. Sometimes smells like cooked meat.
Agreed.
It's low on hit points, thank you.
Bad air. Don't get scorched, look.
Okay.
How can this place be so full of evil? Isolating targets.
Destroy your legs, and the rockets here best. Shotgun air. Take shelter. Defensive protocols apply. We've been rescued. The enemy is infected. Aegis protocol engaged.
Elimination protocols engaged. We can reach out.
I concur.
It's fine. Okay.
You have arrived at your destination. Judicial Enforcement Station TN8737.
Thanks for subscribing, Ferragina. Welcome.
Neutralization commenced.
Yeah, pushing is very important actually. Especially for the melee characters. I do it very often if I do play melee. But instead, they're a lot of the time they're doing mostly like their heavy swings and stuff. When a push would actually have been really helpful. We have yep. Bomber. Yep.
That barrel's going to explode.
Ow, still got caught. Okay. The one time I can use brain clear. Yes. Danny, please do not mention that game on this channel. Okay? The game's developers support racism against the Asian people. So, I'm sorry, but if you mention that game on this channel, I do have to time you out. Alright, I will let it go this first time, but here's the proof. Please do not ever mention that game on my channel ever again. Thank you very much. I am done with that. That is a game from the past, okay? Do not support that game. Do not talk about it. Do not play it. If you play it, then I will have to ask you politely to leave because we do not want racists here on this channel. Yeah, you should always bind your tag to your primary fire. I stand by this technique. Some people will say, "Oh, I don't like it because, you know, it doesn't like it doesn't make sense or whatever, or it tags everything too much and it takes away focus." But these are all excuses. To be fair, how often do you see your teammates tagging everything? If they had rebound their tag, everything would be tagged and it would not be a problem.
The hope his return brings is like a bright flame in the darkness.
Wish he was here now. Hostile.
Incoming attackers!
Yeah, I'm just gonna avoid any discussion of that game. It never ends well. All I know is that Phoenix Labs are unfortunately a racist company, and since I do work with some Asian companies and being Asian myself, I have no time for racists, so, you know, I keep it off my channel. No. Haven't had a need to. So far, this is the first time we might actually make it to the end. Right?
Earlier got win one give one.
I mean, yeah. But after that, we met some very happy people. These guys are
Very
the,
happy.
these are the only ones that haven't been that happy so far. They became less happy.
And that's all I've got to
They
say.
become happiness.
The flame is not part of the Voidstrike staff, it's part of the skill tree. But this is a perk staff. This is a perk staff that I'm using. Yeah, this is a perk staff. Voidstrike is the cannonball one. You can actually add fire to it on critical hit, but it's not really used that often. At least for me. I prefer to have the fast charge and the warp nexus. Now, I want to try the surge blessing, but I still don't have it, so... By the way, boss seems to take a lot of damage from fire now, so I'll just burn him out. Happy ogre. He's so happy over there. There we go. Burned out. Not bad. This is a brain burst build, Salty Doggo. Unfortunately, the brain burst doesn't feature much because it just has such a minimal place. Like its opportunity for use is very rare. But this is a brain burst build actually that I'm testing today.